Howdy, I'm Matt, and welcome to today's Mastermind. I am joined by Sir David of Furness up in Junior.
Hello. How are you doing?
Very good.
I'm inside today. It's I should have gone outside, but I didn't plan ahead, and therefore didn't have charge on the battery.
So if you just put this in the context, we're amongst the heat wave here in the United Kingdom. It's absolutely fantastic. We'll get to that topic in just a moment, because this week's topic of our Mastermind review is using fear as a motivator. Now, here's some irony for you, and I didn't prep Dave on this one at all. I am personally going through a stage of I cannot be asked-itis. Okay, I genuinely am going through this stage at the moment. And that I don't know whether it's me just getting to being age 40 very soon. I don't know whether this is my personal tolerance level. I don't know whether I've hit burnout. I don't know, a collection of different things. I just feel happy and very relaxed at the moment, which, Dave, I'm pretty wired. Normally, I'm still waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to bed at 8:30 every night. Nothing's really changed as far as my routine. But for me right now is that I'm just so chilled out, and that's just not me at all. So for me to be discussing fear as a motivator, when we first originally did this, which was back in 2015, we discussed this topic, is that I was hell-bent. You need to use fear as a motivator. So what we're going to be doing for today's Mastermind is actually I'm going to hand over to Dave. And like I said, I gave Dave no prior warning on this one because I just wanted to put this in context, because actually I'm looking for Dave's help in this one. So in many ways, I'm on your side of the table as watching this as you are, if that makes any sense. So Dave, over to you. Sorry to put you on the spot, by the way.
No, I love it. I love being on the spot. It's where I live. I live on the spot. So yeah, no, this is an interesting one. It's an interesting concept. Like I said, from Matt's point of view, and like I said, it's something which we've spoken about many years ago now, back in 2015, almost 3 years ago. And I would say, in that time, our experiences of fear has changed. Back in 2015, to paint the picture, we were still very much in the early days of UnderstandingE. We were probably just about a year or so in, and fear had played a big part in what we had built. We had no idea if what we were doing with UnderstandingE would work. We knew that the solution worked, but we didn't know if the way that we were going to deliver it was going to work or anything like that. So back in 2015, and like I said, Matt said he was totally wired. We were both working very long days. Fear right then, it was the fear of failure. It was the fear of, well, what if this doesn't work?
I think you're absolutely right there, Dave. It was the fear of saying that this is viable to use Magento and M2E Pro. It is viable. It is a tool. And remember, like my personal background was multi-channel e-commerce. I'd worked for several companies beforehand, and some of them the bills of several grand per month were not unheard of. And I'd found M2E Pro and Magento purely by accident. And of course, back then it was free. So being able, it was just, I think for me originally was proving the point. It didn't need to cost £1,000 a month to have multi-channel software. And I think that was my underlying factor. I had to prove to myself and to the outside world, you can do this. You can absolutely do it on a shoestring budget. And you can get very close to enterprise grade software for not a lot of money. Or the only difference was that you needed to put some time, effort, and energy in that. And I think that was my personal motivator. And we both really got stuck in. It was long nights, it was long days, long weeks. I remember the cycle which we went through. We would be flat out for absolute ages, and then I think me and you would just have that. I need a day off, and then come back to it. So just to put it into perspective there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, whilst we had an idea that, I mean, you've got to think, like, fear for back then, sort of 5-6 years ago, it was Matt's reputation that was on the line. You know, Mac was very well known in the e-commerce circles, you know, for Last Drop of Ink and everything else. And it was, I guess, Matt's reputation as an e-commerce consultant, or the most expensive e-commerce consultant in the UK, certainly, if not the world. That right, if he was throwing his weight behind this, he had to make it work. And that was you know, when you think about a reputation, I mean, there's always an element of people that would like to say, oh, I don't really care what people think about me. Deep down, everybody cares what people think about them to a degree. For example, if I turned around and called one of you a murderer and you were not a murderer, you wouldn't like the fact, you know, you wouldn't, you've seen it in the papers, and I don't want to get too dark and deep with other terms that you can be labeled, but you would be really annoyed if someone labeled you something that you weren't.
Yeah, unnecessarily or unfairly.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfairly, unnecessarily. So it works the same way. As people do care what others think of them. And I think, you know, fear was certainly a part of that. It's like, do you want to be attributed to a failure? Do you, you know, so it was, there's a lot of weird things that, you know, which played on our mind back when we were starting Understanding E. And obviously over the years, we you know, Understanding E grew and became successful. And again, thanks to you guys watching this, you know, the audience that we've managed to build over that time, that's been a great thing. And that took away that fear for us is a sort of downplayed a little bit. It's almost like, right, yeah, we proved that worked. And in the meantime of that, obviously the whole industry's changed. M2 Pro is now no longer free. Magento is no longer owned by eBay. So obviously the landscape has changed, which means that, you know, if we were to start Understanding E today from scratch, it would look very different to what it did 5 years ago. And
I think you'll learn an awful lot in that time period, at least.
Oh, absolutely.
Magento and M2E Pro would still be definitely an option, and I think that maybe an area would be WordPress and WooCommerce. That would have been a little bit more obvious. And again, as much as that there was hype and stuff about Shopify having an eBay integration and things like that, it's all kind of fallen short. On the positive side, again, looking at it now, is that Magento are promising an Amazon integration direct through the actual site software itself, which is fantastic to hear. That's happy days. So sorry, Dave, bring us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So bringing this back onto the topic of fear, I think this is, you know, an element that you can now look into with your own businesses. Watching this is, we've often found in the past that if something scares you or intimidates you, that is usually a good avenue for you to then go and explore. Because if it scares you or intimidates you, it means that you probably should do it. It's that stepping out of the comfort zone. And as an entrepreneur, that is usually where you will excel most. It's where other people dare not to tread. And like I said, when push comes to shove, you will more than not make it work. So again, if there's something in your business that you're looking at, you know, is there a new marketplace opportunity that you're thinking of doing? Is there a new, you know, have you heard that there's opportunity to do Amazon Germany, but you're worried about the translation piece or the, you know, whatever it may, the customer service piece? Chances are, if you're scared of doing it and you're trying to come up with excuses as to why you shouldn't do it, the success lies in why you should do it. And I think it's one of those things. It's almost the one thing which again is now a recurring theme in what I do is whenever someone says this is why you shouldn't do it, you have to flip that question around and go, yeah, but this is why I should do it. You know, it's that old saying, it's what if it doesn't work? Yeah, but what if it does work? It's that flipping of the mentality right there. It's like, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? Well, what's the worst thing that happens if it doesn't work? You might lose a little bit of money, you might lose a little bit of time, but as long as the processes are in place and you're smart about your engagement, your processes of doing this new thing, it shouldn't impact the rest of your business massively. The benefits of you doing it and it working is it could 10x your business over a year, over 2 years. And is it worth not doing that and looking back in time and going, I wish I'd have tried it? Because I said regret is a motherfucker. to put it brutally.
And Dave, you're absolutely right there. Regret is one thing is that it's like it's not one thing which you want to be thinking about. There's obviously things which I personally regret doing. I'm very aware of some of those things, but there's also things which I regret not doing, not having kids earlier, for example, just from a family perspective, not. I should have not gone to college, although it's one of those hindsight things, is that if I didn't go to college straight university, then I would have never ended up on exactly the same path. It's not like we get this rewind button, is it?
Yeah.
And we can go rewind and go back and change things in the past. We can't do that. But coming back to like what you were saying, is that regret is sometimes you got to push it. And that I think that's where I am at the moment, is that I'm very, very chilled out. I'm very few on the regrets scale. And I know that I could be using the time a little bit more effectively. Well, definitely more effectively, to say the least. And by the way, I'm very much sat in the shoes of a business owner who's been running their business for 4 or 5 years now, something like that, even longer class widget chimp in there. And things are set in, and they're very comfortable. Things are working. Nothing's like falling apart at the seams-ish, if that makes sense. Things are just ticking along, and I've got comfortable, if that makes sense. And this is why I was saying back at the beginning, if there's one person which needs to be listening to this, obviously besides yourself, it's actually me, which is using fear as a motivator, because I know it has worked for me before in the past, like UE, that was full on, because as Dave basically put, I had fear of looking a twat, if that makes sense. And putting everything which I'd worked on for years beforehand on the line to make the point, actually prove the point that this approach did work. So yeah, kind of a personal one this week. Apologies if that's not your cup of tea, but I think if anything, it shows that we're human, just the same as you. We don't sit here in front of you in these masterminds and pretend that everything is hunky-dory in the world and everything is perfect. That's just not the way the world is. And we have ups and we have downs. At the moment, I'm in a down. And I know that I'm there. And anyway, that's me. Sorry, Dave. Get us back. No, so what we were chatting about you were mentioning the consequences could face if you don't actually do it. You don't get off your ass.
And that's the thing. It's this is where you have to sort of look deep down into yourself and realize like what is important to you, what scares you, what is the thing which would motivate you more than anything. And that could be like, for a lot of people, it is financially based. It is a financial how best to describe it, a quality of life, a financial amount that they want to get to that would give them a comfortable life, or an amazingly comfortable life.
Yeah, I'm butting in here, and I don't apologize for it. Maybe that's the reason where I am at the moment. Maybe I am just comfortable. I can we live with Granny, with nice house. We have a pool, for goodness sake. Like, I went from a house where you had 22 steps up to the front door. The only grass which we had was between the patio tiles. Everything was just concrete. And I'm not kidding you, everything was concrete. It was so bad that we had to have a digger out the back just to get an extra couple of feet of usable space out there. It was concrete city. So when we had the opportunity to move to Granny's house, which is just on the outskirts of Bristol, and everything is green, or brown at the moment because it's been so blooming hot, we absolutely jumped to the chance. And I get look at my office. This is a frigging man's cave extraordinaire. If you like model airplanes, well, you can have wet dreams in here, and of course all that pays for itself as well. There's some irony for you. I have a hobby which pays for itself. That's so peculiar. And again, that's by no accident. Of course, that happened with a 1.5 year full-on work creating content on YouTube, 1,000 videos or something like that. That was no 2-minute, oh, look at this. That happened over a decent amount of time with sustained effort. Yeah, so sorry, Dave, getting back to the comfortable, getting to a level where you're happy at. Maybe that's my issue at the moment. Again, I'm just talking very openly. And again, I want to just stress this is sometimes about us and sometimes about you as well. Maybe that's my point, is that I'm just very comfortable at the moment. I feel very happy in myself. I've got 2 beautiful kids. I've got a lovely wife. There's no major bills kicking around. Like the tenant in the house is absolutely fine. We've got new tenants for another house as well. It's things are good. In fact, the only uncertainty, there's like 2 uncertainties which I have. Yeah, I just saw Mike's comment. Pull your finger out, Matt. I've just seen there's. Honestly, Mike, I would if I could right now. So there's only 2 uncertainties in this world for me right now. Number one is the next door is being sold at the moment. It's a process of they're selling a house, and that's direct impact upon us and the family. And the other one is Dave. The last person I want to annoy in this world is Dave. Dave is like my husband. And I mean this in like the nicest, most metaphoric way as possible. I have my wife, which is Helen, which I love to my bits, and I share absolute honesty with her.
Helen does the stuff that I don't do with Matt.
And it does something Dave doesn't do with Matt. But then I also have Dave as well. And you have, again, those of you which work with partners, you know what it takes to do that. And in fact, I was watching Aussie Gold Hunters the other day, and there's a Vern and the other chap as well. Series 3 have just come out right now, and there's a conversation going on there when there's 3 blokes which work together, and they are all brutally honest together. They just there's that air of transparency, and I think it works really, really well. And it's just one of those things. It's just like a marriage. That's the key to a long-term relationship, and that's the one thing I don't want to screw up with Dave. For example, and that's why I'm very open and honest in telling Dave that's where I am and how I feel at the moment. Because if I masked it and said I was doing something which I wasn't doing, then I'm a liar, and I don't like being. I don't want to lie. You have to cover lies with more lies and stuff like that. When is that life is just so much. I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've ever learned, is that life is just so much easier when you're very open and honest in what you're doing and who you're working with. So sorry, Dave, I've taken us.
I'm glad this one was me talking a lot today. No, it's good. It's good. Like I said, it's honest, and it's like I said, it's real. So again, like I said, taking this rewinded slightly, it all boils down to what it is that, what make, like I said, comfortable is fine, but comfortable can lead to complacency. And, you can be comfortable 1 minute. And like I said, Matt's probably not a good example, but for anyone else in most normal circumstances, boiler breaks, flood happens, and all of a sudden you might have a 2-3 grand bill that appears overnight, and it's like, right, okay, so are you comfortable enough where you could fix that without it then affecting other things in your life, your other sort of things that you enjoy doing? It really does depend on, like I said, the quality of life that you like. And as I said, Matt's knocking on 40, I'm knocking on 30. It's quite funny. Me and Matt are born 10 years and a couple of weeks apart. But for me, like 30 feels like a weird sort of milestone, because for me it feels like
Dave, 30 for me is I can't fucking believe I'm still alive with all the stuff I've done. I kid you not. I genuinely think when I had my 30th birthday, I actually sat there and thought to myself, I cannot believe that I am still alive with like the stupid stuff which we were doing as kids and things like that. We used to fall out of trees like several times a day, bike accidents, like cycling into cars and like people opening doors on you. And I genuinely thought when I got to 30 is that I could not believe that I got this far and was still alive. I genuinely just sat there and it sank in for a bit. Sorry.
So from my point of view, and this is something, because I think there's a YouTube video in it somewhere, like 30 things, 30 thoughts about hitting 30 or something like that. But for me, it feels like my 20s has largely been a massive learning experience. And like I said, I've not massively dicked about. I did a little bit at university, but nothing mental. And, you know,
Really? I can't remember 18 to 21. I remember
well, I
when
mean,
I went 21st.
I think I was, what, 24 when I went self-employed with the consultancy stuff, and then 25 when I started with you. So again, for the past 5 years, like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's allowed me to do some incredible things, like the trip to Manila and Thailand, and I went and lived in LA for 3 months. You know, I've led a very, looking back, I'm very self-critical, but I look back now and I think, actually, you know, I've done some cool stuff, which, you know, doing UnderstandingE and everything else has enabled me to do. But I look back at my 20s and I think it's largely the way I generally think I'm going to look at it is, yeah, that's been okay. I've learned a lot, you know, and it's been great. But for me now, like my 30s, it's like, right, this is where I need to really ramp it up to a new level. You know, if I want to lead the life which, you know, I want to do, the freedom of, you know, financially, freedom of location and everything else, then I really need to take it to a next level. So for me, financial motivation is a big one. For example, I was donating blood yesterday, and just down the road from the blood place is the BMW garage, and it's an M Sport garage. So you see the M6, the M5, the M4, and I'm like, yeah, I want the fast cars, and just pure because I'm a car fan more than anything. And it's like, in order to get to that level where I could justify, working from home, therefore not having a commute and not having to drive anywhere, but having a bloody 80 grand car on the drive. I need to be in a very, very privileged place to be able to get to that level.
Yeah, because they are 80 grand as well. I was looking
at it's crazy money.
X5 2019, which is coming in. Sorry, I'm a massive X5 fan. No apologies. And there's 70 grand minimum. Yeah. And that's before you start sticking extras and stuff.
Yeah, start sticking the M badges on it and stuff. And yeah, and it's yeah. So I mean, for me, financial, yeah, and I don't have kids yet, so I'm thinking like, well, when that happens, you know, eventually the kids are going to want to, you know, and I've heard children are not expensive. Everybody tells me this. But, you know, you know,
there's no right time when it comes to kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect day. You know, just going slightly off topic here. When kids turn up, your whole world changes for the better. And you don't even realize it until the big thunderstorm's over, if that makes sense, which is between 1 and 3. I'm sure I've got more around the age 15 to 16, 17 girls, but daddy has a baseball cap, should I say. So things will naturally sort themselves out one way or another.
But I mean, I get the kid thing. Like, I've got godchildren and nephews and stuff, and they're all great, and they're about 4 or 5, and they're fun now because they can talk and, you know, and that sort of stuff. But so it's like, again, thinking for me, it's like, well, one day they're going to want driving lessons. They're going to want their first car. They maybe want to go to university and all that sort of stuff. So again, it's maybe I'm thinking too far in advance, but for me, I feel like I've got a long way to go before I can be comfortable, like me personally. And don't get me wrong, you know, like, again, I think I'm one of 3 of my like friends that actually own a house. You know, 20-year-olds don't own property these days. You know, I'm very, very fortunate to be in that position. But again, it's like, I don't want to get complacent. I don't want to get lazy, I guess, and not reach my full potential. So for me, that is my fear, is that I set very high standards for myself. And again, Pete, you know, I've got friends and family and stuff who will totally argue with me, and I'll say, I'm not successful. I'm doing okay, but I'm not successful. And you know, the biggest problem for me is that I know deep down, no matter what, there's never going to be any amount of money. There's never going to be any point where I'm going to be happy, because it's always going to move. It's always going to change. It's always going to. It's the same with business. You know, we got our first 1,000 subscribers. We got our first 2,000, and then you just keep moving the goalposts, and it's always going to be that way. It's like a hedonic treadmill. The more that you get, the more that you want.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Dave. To a degree, until you get to 39 3/4.
And then completed it.
It's been really interesting listening to Dave, because it was kind of like mirrored like myself, is that I did feel like personally, and Ben, you can chip in on this one as well. I have felt that, or I do feel that my 20s was just a big learning experience. literally from 21, when I can't remember 18 to 21 because I was pissed for every night of the week except for Wednesdays because it was always a crap night out. And after 21, things did get more serious, if that makes sense. And my whole 20s was just a big learning curve. And I felt that my 30s were actually implementing everything which I learned in my 20s, if that made sense. And like it was just proving I could do stuff, and I actually did stuff in my. I'm still in my 30s now, technically, but I do.
Mate, you've got about a month.
Yeah, months to go, and I am genuinely. I'm not saying I've got a midlife crisis, although I'm seriously considering getting a paramotor.
That's when you officially, join the midlife crisis club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't want a mistress. I'm really happy with like that side of my life. But I understand. I know people who've gone through things like that as well. Just not even go there on that one. So I had another child with another woman, and now he's taking his original family to Australia. Whoa, that's all very happy. I'm very happy from that side of my life. But I do wonder for some days when I'm due at like a midlife crisis of some form. And what does it feel like anyway? What do you have to do to have it?
Do you actually remember? Do you remember like a few months ago when you were like, I've given up smoking, I've given up vaping?
Oh, that really pisses me off today. Matt, don't drink. I cannot remember the last time I had an alcoholic drink.
I reckon it was the time me and you went out in Bristol.
Yeah, so 5 years ago, I went out, and it was a hilarious night because I remember there was this. Remember that day? There was that ironing board on the side, and I popped it up, and I was pissed out my face. I had a can in my hand or something like that, and just chatting to women as he went past. And you were at this thing then, and just genuinely just being Matt, which is totally. So I think that was the last time I got drunk. So I don't drink. I gave up smoking. Then I took up vaping to get rid of the smoking, and then I gave up vaping as well. The only thing which I got left at the moment is coffee. And then I found out yesterday that the missus has been swapping my normal ground coffee with decaffeinated. Jeez. So I've been thinking for the last week or so, maybe more, that there's been something wrong with me. And in fact, then the wife and the mother-in-law have actually just owned up to saying that we've been mixing in decaffeinated in with your coffee.
That's where your mojo's gone, mate.
I even stopped my normal multivitamins thinking it was that.
That's where your mojo's gone. They've taken your bloody caffeine, mate. You're not powered by coffee anymore.
Yeah. So no wonder I felt so wired the other day when the woman put 3 shots in the in Cafe Nero. I did feel pretty tempered after that. Maybe I just need to go out and drink coffee all the time, and then that way I'm completely wired. So anyway, you're chatting to Matt, who's getting close to 40 now. I'm wondering when he should have some midlife crisis going on, because I feel very much that I'm too much of a good boy at the moment.
That was it. You said to me, the exact words were, I feel like I should be doing something naughty. But obviously said the same thing about not wanting a mistress or all the rest of it. But
exactly. You know, of course it is. Like, we went out for Nando's for dinner today, and that was great. And I felt great. I was sat there and I was looking at it. And again, look, we're going way off topic, right? I got a letter from Bath East and North East Somerset for a 5-yearly checkup for those aged between 40 and 75. So you can imagine my reaction was like, I'm not even 40 yet. But then I was actually thinking about it seriously. H was winding me up. They're going to give me a prostate check. So that didn't go down very well. But no, they're going to give you a cholesterol check. And that was that. And I was reading it as I was eating 4 pieces of bacon, which I'd done on the barbecue, and a fried egg on top with a load of ketchup. And I was sat there thinking, yeah, I'm probably going to fail at the cholesterol level. But that's not really rebellious enough for me. But yeah, I do feel that I've got to 40 and I've ended up giving up most things. And yeah, granted, I have issues with buying the phone, but I'm doing my best to clear out stuff which I don't use or don't fly. So I am pretty ruthless at times.
Maybe you should take up yoga.
No, Dave, that would get us into this extra mistress stuff.
Maybe.
Maybe
spandex, bad move.
Remember, I spent 3 years then that we didn't do any drugs or anything like that. We just did alcohol and chatted up women. That's what we did 6 nights a week, relentlessly. So
See, that's an interesting one about using fear as a motivator, because so many people.
What if I don't go to yoga? I'm going to miss.
No. Let me segue this in. So, for example, you saying like chatting up women. I know so many of my friends who are petrified of talking to women. It's a fear. It's a fear of rejection, isn't it? That's ultimately it. You don't want to put yourself out there.
Do you know what? The biggest diss I've ever had, like ever, you've got grey in your beard, haven't you? That was the biggest diss. And I've been here, I've had everything done to me, I think. And the biggest diss, and the one which hurt the most out of all of it, was that you've got grey in your beard, haven't you? I think I was pretty sharp at the time, and I was quite battered. I still remember the pub we were in. And I think I said, well, that must be experience. Let's go. And that was me being, well, I thought you just dissed me on this one. Let's see how far we can push it back. And we ended up, those two were off their trolley. It was a pair of mates. And they were funny as you like. And actually, the irony, I got a massive diss, but it was also one of the funniest nights which we had.
I thought you would turn around and go, yeah, but it's not as long as yours. Hey.
Yeah, you got.
That's why I was terrible at chatting up women.
Yeah, there's a fine line which you need to stick to, and it doesn't matter what you said. If you can laugh afterwards and get someone to laugh with you, you've done all right, or you've got to duck really quickly.
Move. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's.
I know the point where you were saying, Dave. Some people really struggle with
talking to women or men. If you again the other way again. We live in this equal world these days where women are happy to go and chat out men as well, which is great. But I know that again, it works both ways. Fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, fear of putting yourself out there and being judged ultimately. And that can be a great motivator. The only way to get over that fear is to literally step out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there. How many people are scared of starting YouTube channels, putting themselves on video, how they sound, how they look on a camera? The only way that you're going to get over it is by actually doing it.
Yeah, did you know what? That bit never fazed me at all. It never fazed me at all. Ever was putting myself on camera. And I think that I actually, the nice bit of motivation for me, from my own point of view, from doing anything on YouTube and UnderstandingE and stuff, was that my daughters could go back, because it's electronic, potentially. They could go back at any point in time and see everything which I did in video format, and could replay that. I think that's such a fantastic age to be in. And then for like my girls to go back and see that, wow, Dad did that many videos in that short period of time, and every single one he had passion to do this, and then he did UnderstandingE and the other things which he'd done as well. I think that's a very interesting age which we live in, which is that you have this potential of legacy to be left behind you. And I think that was being on the camera. I understand why people are concerned, because they might think they're ugly. They might think they got some strange accent, which somebody might not like. We've had one person tell us that my accent was strange, and we thanked him, and that was the last we ever heard of him. And that was years ago.
Yeah,
so,
that was the early days.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's never been, and maybe it was my 3 years of getting pissed. I've never really had that issue. I'd quite happily be on the camera. And again, the way which I always looked at it was that it was just a straightforward, I am my biggest critic. Is in that if I didn't like a video, I remember the videos which I recorded back in the old house, is a tiny little room, and I slowly improved what I was doing. Better microphone, better lighting, better editing, and things like that.
The big whiteboard on the background,
big whiteboard, and having things at your disposal, stuff which
kids' pictures on the walls. I remember those days.
Yeah, exactly. And the maths corner as well, where we were doing times tables and things like that. So
it's one of those things that no matter where you look at in life, you ultimately find that fear is often an indicator that you should do something. Like fear of public speaking, fear of, talking to women, fear of starting that business, fear of leaving the job, fear of, oftentimes again, I think it was in the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And I still think about it today whenever I give that question is, what is actually the worst that can happen? You know, if it all fails, what's the worst thing that can happen? Nobody's going to shoot me. No, I'm still going to be here, and you know, and it's sometimes just putting things into that perspective really actually realizes that actually, you know, it's that old saying, right? Don't sweat the small stuff, and then you realize that everything is small stuff. It's that sort of line. So why not put yourself out there? Why not try? Why not step out your comfort zone and do that thing which you've been putting off for months, if not years, and just do it?
Maybe that's saying maybe I'm just comfortable where I am at the moment, and I'm not seeing anything which really challenges me, like to the scale of UE was, because UE was that big mountain to scale. And you've just read Mike's comment as well in the chat, haven't you? Mike says, I never understood a word you said, Matt. I just listened for Dave. And I've had some fantastic comments for the RC stuff about my accent and some of the slang which I use as well. I have done my best very lately to keep the adult words to a bare minimum, and that has paid dividends. Again, that's one of those continual states of improvement, isn't it? It's Kaizen, isn't it?
Very Kaizen, yeah.
Yeah, Kaizen, which is that you just go, you know it's coming, and that word might pop out, and it's having something to, I think actually, just on that topic specifically, was that having something to replace it with. So instead of saying the F word, I'd say family friendly. That was due to, what was it, Dashcam Bristol DCB, which you should definitely look up on YouTube. Very funny channel for voiceovers to do with bad driving. But on a serious point, yeah, fear. It's finding that one big. Again, I'd like big stuff. I have like big stuff and like big challenges. Maybe I'm just waiting for one to come along. And to be honest, I'm just hanging on for stuff for something to turn up, while I'm just brutally honest, just enjoying the summer here in the UK. It's that last year, I think we had about 2 weeks.
Yeah, we had a crap one last year.
Yeah, and then I'm also thinking this year, but we had January, February, March, like the worst 3 months. Weather-wise here in the UK, they were absolutely miserable. And in the space of 3 weeks, we went from like deeper winter to full-blown spring, and everything just shot up like 2 foot tall. Everything just went green in the space of 3 weeks. And now we've just hit summer, and we're in July now, and it's absolutely brilliant, and that's set to happen for the next couple of weeks. So on one hand, I feel guilty, and then on the other hand, I brutally just don't feel guilty for not pushing through. And I know, again, this is one of these, we're chatting about using fear as a motivator, and I'm here just plainly saying I'm really comfortable at the moment, but I know that I can use what we've been discussing to my advantage later. Like Dave's been thinking about college funds and driving lessons, and he's actually been sweating the bigger stuff, like which I've got in like several years.
Yeah, you've got it much quicker than I have.
Yeah, exactly. Dave, you don't need to wear that. Maybe that's what I should be saying. Dave, you're worried about the wrong things.
I'm going to be like 45 at least before I need to worry about that. So yeah, I'm Gucci. I've got 15 years.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to find the bit which scares me to make me flip from comfortable mode Matt into fearful Matt, because I know when Matt is a little bit more fearful or has a point, even just straightforward as a point to prove, I can get great things done in very short periods of time as needed. And the other one is the thing is as well is that slightly older, slightly well financed, slightly smarter, have a team around me, people like Dave, for example, and Ellen, a support structure which they're available, knowing that they can kick in when they need to, if that makes sense. Again, it's just, if anything, these are called masterminds. They're two-way kings. Is that we've spoken about quite a number of topics here, but this one's maybe a little bit more personal than most of us of late. Some of you may have run your businesses for a very short period of time. Some of you may have run it for years. Some of you may have actually even just been worked through this and have maybe hit a similar patch as what I have. I would be very surprised if this is not uncommon, put it that way.
I mean, we've got Maria in the chat. Maria was one of the first people who joined us with Understanding E. She was definitely one of the early guys, and Mike as well. Yeah, we know you guys have been in business for a long time, probably longer than Understanding E's been going, or at least a very similar time frame. So, yeah, I guess what has ever made you guys feel scared? What has made, what's been your motivator? Again, like I said, this is a mastermind. It's a two-way conversation. I know we've had some chats going on, but Nick, Mike, James, Maria, let us know what happens to, have you ever felt comfortable, complacent, and what have you done to get out of it, other than Nick saying he swings some kettlebells around? And James, he knows a few people who've taken up running. I hate running. I'm a big guy. I'm not meant to run. Especially since I broke my ankle years ago. I can walk for miles, but that pounding on the ankle bone, it just hurts after a while.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, Dave. I was thinking about, me and Abby were chatting about big school, and one of the things just I really remember was that I really enjoyed running at secondary school. It was one of the fastest. And even the endurance stuff I really enjoyed as well. Again, I think it's one of those cases of having to. We had David Guest, which was like the UK's weightlifting champion, if we're top 3 in the UK at the time. Oh. So we'd be playing rugby and there'd be like 4 of us hanging off him and he's still running down the pitch. It was so big. So being scrum half, you either got rid of the ball really quickly, you come as fast as pos, and then planted the ball down at the far end, which they soon got onto once you've seen some scrawny little kid just going through. So yeah, it's and Nick says I play soccer and despise running. So yeah, short sprint.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those. It's like sports is a little bit different because like I go play badminton, which is a bit hairy fairy really. But, and then obviously a few months ago I did the cycle with John Hayes across Portugal after never being on a bike for 3-4 years. So yeah, it's I just didn't fall in love with cycling like John thought I might. I don't have that. I mean, I am enjoying golf at the minute, which is obviously about a 3-mile walk carrying 15 kilos worth of metal bats on your back. But yeah,
I have too many good memories of playing golf with alcohol and leaving carts and stuff in hedges and doing stupid stuff with golf carts. There's nothing quite like going for 18 holes with 18 cans and a mini golf cart. And then wondering how the hell you're going to get home because you drove to the golf club. I didn't drive home drunk, but we got taxis. Just looking at Tink and Stink's message on there. 60 years old, and in 11 years' time, no pension in place is my motivation at the moment. I want a comfortable retirement. That's, again, maybe that will kick in. So you're absolutely probably right. That is something definitely to be thinking about towards the future. Also,
I mean, I feel guilty because I've got nothing planned for like pension wise. I'm not even convinced there'll be a pension by the time I retire. So yeah, that is again another good motivator.
Yeah, my one's pretty crude. Is that maybe the mother-in-law and the auntie-in-law may eventually go. I think they're going to go for bloody years, which I'm not complaining about. They're very nice people. They're absolutely ace. But the houses will be, for me and H at least, the retirement. So again, maybe that's why I'm not that concerned about that, because I know that we've got the properties which are sat there as that we have rock solid. They're rock solid, literally rock solid assets. So Maria, I completely understand. That point of view, I really do. Because if there's frankly, who wouldn't mind just going on the odd coach tour, and going and sitting in the sand and go across to Skegness or wherever, go down to Portugal and like float around the world for a bit and not really worry too much about scrimping every single penny. So yeah, I totally get you with that, Maria. I want a comfortable retirement, and yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm thinking about my auntie and uncle at the moment, which they recently got married, but only invited my mother, my mum and dad, and my uncle and his partner, because it wasn't really like they've been together for like 50 years, some scary period of time, and for them the marriage wasn't. It was only about the piece of paper, so they get some tax benefits. which their accountant told them. So anyway, hobby base. So Jim says, could it be any sport, to be fair? Matt, you look like you have a good bonce for swimming. Yes, I've enjoyed swimming every day this week at the moment. I must admit, I do enjoy swimming, but not as much as I enjoy the lilo, if I'm perfectly honest.
Not sure that's quite the same, but
no. I tell you what, having 2 kids which are 8 and 10, it does keep you young and on your toes at times, that's for sure. And I think maybe that's the thing. I am getting a lot of daddy time at the moment as well, which I'm really, really enjoying. From Minecraft, which we all play together as a trio, to going to Costa whenever we can in the first thing in the morning. Like this morning, the kids came in and woke me up at 5 past. Sorry, they came out to my office at 6:05. That's the first time they've both got themselves up. They weren't dressed, but they were concerned whether we were going to Costa that morning, and there was still loads of time. It wasn't like they were coming out at 7 o'clock and dressed in their school clothes going, we have Costa, which is impossible. No, this was an hour earlier. So I know, just saying things are comfortable at the moment. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, absolutely. Dave, I've dragged us off topic again. Fear as a motivator. I remember the conversation which we had back in 2015 using fear as a motivator. And I'm looking at the notes in here as well. Using fear is a mindset that motivates you to get things done and set higher goals. When you don't have something which you're scared of, that is actually a serious issue, which I'm personally going through at the moment. And that's why I said back at the beginning, I'll probably hand most of this over to Dave for chat, which I've done a very good job of talking all the way through. So Dave, I need to be quiet. Would you like to summarize, please, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, as we started at the beginning, this has been a bit of a different mastermind this week. And James, funny, you just said, I think being comfortable makes you very lazy, and I absolutely hate that feeling. 100% agree. 100% agree. And it's something I've been guilty of in the past for sure. And like I said, I hate it as well. You feel like you're just wasting time. And I think deep down, there's this thing in your head, or certainly in my head, which is like, well, I'm approaching 30. If I double my life, I'll then be 60. You know, it's a third of my life if I'm lucky that I've got, that I've used. I've got 2/3 left if I'm lucky. If I don't get hit by a bus tomorrow, what am I going to do with that time in order to make either, yourself happy, leave a legacy, whatever it is that's personally motivating to you. Time is a finite resource. It's the most finite resource. And what you do, it's an old Steve Jobs quote where he said, if you can look in the mirror and ask yourself, what did you do yesterday? What did you do today? And you're not happy with the answer, then something has to change, because you don't know how many more times you'll get to look in the mirror. So yeah, I mean, for me, that's also a great motivator. It's a case of, you only get one shot at this. Are you using that time wisely or not? With that said, I mean, fear as a motivator, this has been a very different mastermind today than the one that we did back in 2015, than the one that we've done ever. I don't think it's been very, very different, much more personal. But I've enjoyed it. It's been good. It's been good to get, to just be honest with you guys and talk about things outside of us, talking about e-commerce and eBay and Amazon, and hopefully something which actually means a little bit more to you personally.
Yeah, it's a curious one. Dave actually picked up one point there, and I actually learned this from a very good friend called Ivan, which was that Ivan always said that I always remember he was retiring at Rolls-Royce at the time, and he said, Matt, the only one thing which changes is the reflection in the mirror. And he was absolutely right, that is the one thing which does change, is the reflection in the mirror. And again, I'm looking maybe a little bit younger, more like slightly more youthful today because I've had a shave, but normally I'm wandering around with half a beard and stubble on my hair, and after it's gone grey, as I was quite rudely pointed out once upon a time. So yeah, absolutely. And Nick, we both get you as well. I'm sure you've seen the chats and the live chat, which is on the right hand side of the screen, which is family versus time. I tell you what, and I do agree that go back 4 years, I would have totally agreed with you. Family getting in the way of work. Right now, I am so enjoying my girls, if that makes sense. I think that me and Abby went up to Costa. Sophie was doing a sleepover at a friend's house during the week. So me and Abby went to Costa at first thing in the morning. And it was so, she's only 10. And we sat there and we had it was just a very enjoyable conversation. It was almost like an adult conversation. She was just chatting to a friend, if that makes sense, rather than a daughter. It was a really nice, we were chatting as friends rather than daddy and daughter, if that makes sense. So I think that's another thing for me personally at the moment. I know we're supposed to be sat here chatting about fear and stuff, but I'm enjoying life in more ways than one at the moment. Good weather, unheard of, really genuinely unheard of here in the UK. Last year, I kid you not, last year's weather, summer was about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's what we had this year. We've had 2 weeks already, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it's set for the next 2 weeks at least. In fact, I'm bunking the kids off school on Friday, and we're going down to the Jurassic Coast.
Don't say this; it might be used against you.
But no, we're not just going to sit there on the beach and eat ice creams all day. Just most of the day. It just makes sense. When me and David were chatting about this beforehand. But yeah, family time. And again, Nick, I totally get where you are. Because that was exactly me as well. The younger kids were a massive diversion to what I was trying to do with UE at that point in time. Right now, I've got 2 little friends, and they're mint. They just got such sweet innocence, which is absolutely fantastic. So, anyway, Dave, I end up talking all day about this. Fear is a motivator. It means many things to different people. I wish I had some fear at the moment to get some motivation in. Yeah, let's leave it there.
Fair enough. Like I said, I think we've mentioned everything that that needs to be mentioned. Next week, we are talking about how you can replace yourself in your e-commerce business. The answer is, I'll give you a bit of a heads up. You can't fully replace yourself, but you can do a pretty damn good job of it. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. With that said, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this Tuesday afternoon. If you're in the UK, hope you're enjoying the weather. If you have enjoyed this video, found it useful, it's rather personal, mastermind for a change, then hit that like button down below. And if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe. And if you don't
forget to double subscribe, because subscribing once on YouTube is not enough for YouTube. So not only do you need to press the red button underneath here, you also need to press the bell icon next to it. And then go and check your subscription, because if your name's YouTube, you also unsubscribe people from the channels which you like watching as well. Very frustrating. Dave, we didn't chat about that one. We'll have a chat offline about that one, because 3 of my favorite YouTube channels, YouTube unsubscribed me from them. How peculiar. Anyway, so don't forget to press the red button and the bell icon so YouTube notifies you of when the next video is out.
And to give you a heads up on that, it's every Tuesday at 3 p.m, unless there's something special going on, in which case we'll notify you immediately. And of course, there is the Facebook group as well. Link is in the description. And if you have any questions, you can check out the Facebook group or head over to understandinge.com/forum and ask away in there. They are still active, I promise you. I was in there just the other day, replying to a few bits and pieces that had come in. So yeah, we definitely still going.
Indeed. So on that note, from myself, Matt.
And from me, Dave.
Cheerios.
See you next week, guys. Bye-bye.